Hello, and welcome to the AstroEnergy Astrology Show podcast with Astrologer Shelley Overton. Wow. Okay, here we go. Hi, welcome to the November 13th, Friday the 13th edition of the AstroEnergy Astrology Show podcast. My name is Shelley Overton. I'm an astrologer in Orlando, Florida. I want to welcome you here. And yeah, thank goodness everybody's here. I'm going to put my brand new glasses on. I go through these things, decent pace, but these are the new ones. They're kind of cute, aren't they? Look at that. I love them. Anyway, I've got a few of them. I bought 3 this time. So let me tell you a little about myself. I'm an astrologer in Orlando, Florida, and I have been doing astrology since I started studying it when I was 12, which, to tell you how long I do it, I'd have to practically tell you how old I am. But if you watch with any regularity, you already know I was born about 56 years ago. I think I said that a couple weeks ago. Anyway, yeah, I studied since I was 12. It's when the bug hit me, and I have been doing professional readings since the 80s. And I've been doing it as a primary vocation since, I don't even know, like 2000. So this is what I do, and I want to welcome you to the podcast. I've been doing the podcast for about 11 years. And so, yeah, we're going to go over this week's astrology. And let's see, the biggest news this week is the new moon in Scorpio. So 23 degrees new moon. Let me just see where it's at today. It's at 2 degrees, just went in. So I did a chart for the beginning of this podcast, and it says it's at 2 degrees of Scorpio, and Mercury is at 3 degrees of Scorpio. That means that they're practically at the same place in the sky. So they are on the horizon going down. They're the west side, which is that way from me. Excuse me. And so they're like this in the sky. And again, like every week, I want you to really understand how what I'm talking about is more than just ideas. It's actually where the planets are in the sky and how they affect us day to day. It's where the sun is now. It's where the moon is. It's where the asteroids are, where the points in the sky that are considered the nodes of the moon, where they connect and contact us in the sky. So this is physical, real world stuff, okay? Everything has an energy. The moon reflects light. The sun emanates light. Planets give off magnetic energy. They give off magnetic energy and other types of energy that we don't even know about yet. I mean, it's profound. And there is a gravitational pull of planets and parts of the sky assigned to the different archetypes of the zodiac. So this is the basis of what we do here on the podcast. And every week I like to bring you what's going on currently and what to look out for, what is significant and coming in. So as I'm looking at today's chart, I'm going to actually move it over just a little bit for my own vision. And currently here in Orlando, we've got Mars on the horizon, on the eastern horizon that way, about to come up. So I was watching a little snippet of TV today and saw, we were out and about, I think, my daughter and I, and they had a TV down a hallway, and it had the launching going on, like the rocket launch visual. And I'm like, oh, are they doing that? Because I live in Orlando. We're 35 miles from the coast, 35 miles from where they send up the rockets. And I was like, wow, are they sending one up? Because I just love watching it. You can see it from here. If it's a clear day, you can watch it go right up. So they were not, but tomorrow night around 7:30, I believe, Eastern time, they will be sending up a rocket. So currently at this time of day, it's going to be the same for tomorrow night. So right now it's about 4 o'clock, a little before 4, and Mars is coming up on the horizon. But today, Mars is about 4 hours away from going direct. So, I mean, I guess you could say for all intents and purposes, he's pretty much in that energy. He's going to be going direct in 4 hours. He's at the same degree. He's going to be going direct. So we're really starting to feel a ramping up of this Martian energy. What is the Martian energy? It is definitely associated with Mars. It wouldn't surprise me at all if this rocket that's going up tomorrow had some kind of mission to Mars or connection to a mission to Mars. Because Mars is a powerful energy. It is the god of war energy. And I'm sorry, I have a few hairs that are floating around with the fan blowing on me. I'm in Orlando, so the temperature is, you know, like high 70s, low 80s. So I've got a fan on, and I admire and envy all you people with scarves. I put my scarf on in honor of that. But yeah, really, I want to be cold for a change. I want to have outside weather chill me, but not yet. So cool, it's getting nice, but it's not there yet. But Mars is going to make it warm, and that's what Mars does. So even though we had the snow in California and other states that are experiencing fires, we've got this heat coming in and ramping up, because fire energy is almost quintessentially Aries. Yes, Leo is a fire sign. Yes, Sagittarius is a fire sign. But Aries likes to start fires. It's part of that energy. And so he is red as a planet. Believe that's iron in the surface of Mars, making it red. But he is going to shift it from holding back the drive, holding back our forward motion, making us probably highly frustrated. If you're anything like me, I've been so frustrated with this energy. And he's midway through the sign of Aries. So he's right in the center. I have Mars at 27 Cancer. So I'm going to be really frustrated when he's direct and he's squaring my natal Mars come probably January 1st. Actually, I've got it right here, 27 degrees Aries on January 1st. So yes, exactly square to my Mars in Cancer at 27 degrees. But he's also going to be squaring Pluto from this country. And our natal Pluto is at 27 degrees Capricorn. So yeah, I think January 1st is going to be another significant day for this country. So to reiterate, the country of America was founded when Pluto was at 27 degrees of Capricorn. That means he has come almost fully one whole revolution around the sun since this country was founded. He is going to be exact, I think a couple of years down the road at 27. He's at 22 right now, and a lot of 22 degrees are coming up in the charts. Like Venus hits 22 degrees of Sagittarius on the 3rd of January. I believe Aquarius, not Aquarius, something in Aquarius is at 22 coming up, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just quickly scanning the ephemera. So let me go back to 2020 this year. Mars hits 22 degrees around the 19th of December. Significant date, as you know, that's when Jupiter goes into Aquarius. So Jupiter moves into Aquarius in December, shifting our need for independence, our need to be an individual, and basically shifting us into a more self-interested mindset in Aquarius. Now, wherever Jupiter goes in the zodiac, he's bringing out that need to take care of our own business. Right now, he's at the last degrees of Capricorn, which means it's about us. It's about me, mine. And, you know, each one of us is experiencing this energy of Jupiter wherever the last degrees of Capricorn are in your chart. So for me, that's exactly opposite my Mars, right down in the end degrees of my 3rd house of communication and thought, transportation. And it's highly been affecting me. It's small pets. My cat has something on his nose that looks like he's being bitten by fleas. I'm not sure what it is. I just today put something on it to try and see if that helps. But, you know, animal issues, there's communication issues, not feeling like my voice is being heard, and sibling, other friction issues with my sister. My car is having its own issues, is probably on the way out. Concentrated energy there in my third house in the Capricorn end of the sign, Capricorn structures, ending of structures, ending of a system, and it covers many areas. So wherever this energy is falling in your chart, you're seeing a winding down, a finishing off of the physical, tangible structures associated with that house. Possibly also with other planets. I mean, I was going to talk a little bit more about my chart. I don't have it up here, but it's pretty easy to tell you what it is. So Saturn is exactly opposite my natal Mars right now. When Saturn and Jupiter go into Aquarius, that's exactly opposite my Venus at my midheaven. So that'll be interesting and fun. Oppositions do make it uncomfortable. Venus is the planet of desires. And so there is an opposition to the desire I would have, and it makes my energy more focused on home and family, and really initiating a detachment from the family structure as I know it, but also initiating a desire for independence from that structure in certain ways. I come from a rather, I would call it, and have called it, clannish family. On my father's side, they all kind of stay close together and don't move far away, and they come over to each other's houses, my aunts and uncles. And my father definitely resonates to that energy. But the other side, my mother's side, is much more the opposite, is very independent, like just suck it up and move on with things, kind of lesser emotional, you know, the difference between codependent and completely independent, and maybe narcissistic. Let's call it like it is. So the opposite signs, and that energy is coming out. I've got Neptune at 18 transiting opposite my 17-degree Virgo sun. So that's a wonderful energy. So if you are also a Virgo, or if you have a square, so it would be around 18 degrees of Gemini. So that's 18 days into the sign of Gemini, which would give you right around the 8th of July. Yeah, 8th of July. And it would also be Sagittarius, which is right around the 8th of December. You're feeling this very strongly with Neptune energy. So Neptune breaks things down. It says, you know, I'm taking all the boundaries and wiping them out. And now you feel everything. And now you're having a difficult time focusing. You might have either very deep sleep or distressed sleep. If you're a Pisces, you're probably sleeping really well. If you're Gemini, Sagittarius, or Virgo, you're probably having to talk yourself into sleep. Pisces energy is really meditative, but that's another story, probably for next week. Neptune is going direct at the end of the month. So we'll be discussing that. I'm just double checking it here on my ephemeris to make sure. Yeah, it goes direct on the 29th of November. So we have just a couple weeks, and then we'll be talking, well, we'll probably talk about it next week more in depth, but Pisces, Neptune energy is shifting. So it does, as a blanket statement, a general statement, involve floods and water. So we'll get more in depth with that as we go on to next week's podcast. So interestingly, let's see, today's the 13th. In 9 days, we have Venus going into Scorpio. Currently, we have Mercury in Scorpio, and he's, like I said, conjunct the moon. So this energy is going to be really interesting. I guess I should go back to the new moon. The moon is in Scorpio. Moon, home and family, and it's in the sign of psychology, therapy, the hidden, the other side of life. So attraction to ghosts, attraction to mysteries, and it's also politics. So I want to get back to Mars, because Mars and Scorpio together coming up is going to be pretty intense. So we'll cover that here because he's over there at 15. We're going to talk about Mercury Moon. So Mercury is how we think of things. The moon is how we feel things. Mercury is, and I've experienced this when Mercury was in Scorpio before. I have a Scorpio rising. So my identity is closely linked to this energy because it's literally, I have a 0-degree Scorpio rising. So I have Mercury Moon right on my rising sign, my identity. And so it's really bringing out the well-worn path, the worn thought patterns around darker things. So your mind may more so right now go immediately to the worst case scenario. And the moon backs it up and says, oh yeah, that could really happen. That's really scary, because the moon wants security. And that's kind of the nature of the moon, and the nature of Cancer, the sign it rules, is where's security coming from? Because Cancers feel a lot. And the opposite sign of Cancer is Capricorn. Capricorn creates the structure, the system that makes the Cancer/moon energy stable and feel safe, feel secure. In Scorpio, the fear goes to the dark side. The fear goes to all of those stories we tell ourselves about how things are not going to work out, how the worst case scenario is going to happen. I've started saying to people when they say, well, what if, they get in an accident? What if they don't? What if the worst thing happens? What if it doesn't? So start telling yourself the positive opposite so that you can get out of that mindset. That is something, if you play that game in your mind, you can get yourself into a state of looking at the positive side of things, because quite honestly, ego is what pulls us to the worst case scenario. It's always going to be the ego that wants us to stay in fear, in fight or flight, and always has us thinking that things are not going to work out, that it isn't going to be all wonderful and roses and things will be happy, that you have to defend yourself, you have to protect. And that protection/defensive energy is really honestly where we are in the world right now, where everybody is very concerned. I mean, definitely the powers that be talk a lot about the pandemic. They are right now fixated on the election in America. I honestly have not read much about the news in other parts of the world right now, other than I think lockdowns in England and France. So, we've got this in America, we're like hyper focused on these terrible, terrible things. Now, are they horrible? Yes. For certain people, they are. For other people, I mean, I was reading a list of all the people who are making money in the last 4 years under Trump's administration. It's all the people you would think. It's Jeff Bezos at Amazon and Bill Gates, Microsoft, all the people who have the most money anyway. Their stocks went up, and that's the particular thing that really was benefiting from his presidency, was the stock market. That's joint finances, that's Scorpio. So it is, I think, going up. If I'm not mistaken, it went up 800 points. I know Apple is released a new operating system. It's releasing a new phone. They keep telling me how I can get a new phone. Hey, you qualify. Well, I like my phone. It's interesting because I definitely have had a life of getting new. And I don't know, I just kind of have become more attached to my possessions in a different way. And, I've got this old phone it's like 2017, 3 years. And, I've repaired it myself, and I enjoy some of the things that I buy. And I'm definitely a believer that planned obsolescence is a scourge, and we need to go back to making things lasting. And I do believe that the energy we're coming into, that's going to be a thing. Definitely Pisces brings us back, and Neptune, ergo, brings us back to the vintage mindset, to when things were made with, long-term in mind. They didn't try to get as much money from you by making planned obsolescence. My car is 10 years old. It's starting to break apart bit by bit. I noticed my antennas rusting, and I never saw that a year ago. And it's just, as this energy culminates, those little things are breaking down. And that translates also into the body. Your bones can hurt, your joints can hurt. Right now we have Pluto, Jupiter, Pallas Athena, and Saturn. I did an asteroid chart just for today's show. And so we've got these 4 entities in Capricorn at the end degree, which is winding down. It's making us aware of what we think of the system we're living in, of how we've interacted with it from a Capricornian standpoint, which is taking responsibility for everything that isn't even ours and taking it into our body if it doesn't work. So when you have the sore back, when you have the sore neck, and these are just things I've had, when you get a headache, when you get joint pain or rashes on your skin, these are all Capricorn physical things. And I personally start to get more intense feeling in my body and my bones when we're about to have a big earthquake. That's just how I integrate the energy. And so I know that when my body hurts in certain ways, that there's going to be an event. And I think last week there was a 7.0 earthquake, and it might have been a couple weeks ago in Turkey. And I was feeling headaches, I was feeling joint pain, I was feeling backaches. And I knew it was coming. I knew that that energy was out there in the collective. So as we see this Capricorn energy transit towards the end of the degrees, and of course, like I said, December, Saturn and Jupiter move on into Aquarius. And Aquarius is ankles and joints, where yes, Capricorn can also be joints, but it's more so the stiffening of joints as opposed to the tendons. The tendons are more Aquarian. So we're going to have an awakening in the collective mindset of the energy shifting from Jupiter in Capricorn, which is I need to do my thing and be responsible for me. I can't do you anymore. And Saturn, which is very responsible for everybody, but with the influence of Jupiter next to him, he is like, I'm done. I'm done. And if you've been feeling I'm done, you're right in alignment. It's like, you know, we've got this end energy and we are done. So we're moving on to the new. And Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius is the new. So Saturn in Aquarius coming up December, creating new structures around the chaos or around entrepreneurship and around invention, around alternative ways of dealing with the things we've always been dealing with and being much more independent. I'm just trying to see. Oh yeah. And I have talked about the new moon. I keep coming back to it, but you know, Aquarian energy is strong in my chart. So stick with me. Going back to the moon, Mercury that's probably part of it too, is Mercury is a little bit, you know, mind everywhere. But it's about psychology and what the system is in our mind. Like, how do we understand and integrate the information we see in our environment? And Mercury and Scorpio, Mercury wants to know. Mercury is the ruler of Gemini and Virgo. So both of those signs are very curious signs. They're teachers, they're learners, they rule education in different ways. Mercury in Gemini rules education through teaching and little kids and the ideas that we express. And Mercury in Virgo is very tangible, like writers and teachers and administrators, paperwork, contracts, things like that. So having Mercury in Scorpio, again, speaking as a Scorpio, and I know other people may have different ideas, but I have Scorpio rising, so I'm pretty versed in this. Mercury in Scorpio is definitely about the hidden, about the mystery, about the research, but it's also seeking solutions and seeking justice. So in the higher vibration, Mercury in Scorpio wants justice, wants truth, wants a decision. And that kind of also alludes to what's going on with the election. We've been seeing lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. And from what I understand, there have been a couple with minor concessions about, you know, counting the votes and having people present. But for the most part, over 10, I think it's around a dozen lawsuits have been filed by the Trump administration in the courts, and only 2 with minor concessions. All the rest have been dismissed. And so, interestingly, as I mentioned last week, I believe it was last week's show, Biden is a Scorpio. His birthday is the 20th, so it's a week from today when I'm recording this. And all these planets, so we've got Venus at 20 Libra about to go in, I would say, in right around a week. She's going to go in. I'm going to just double check. Hang on. Don't even have to move to do it because I've got the ephemeris right in front of me. 22nd, like I said before, early in the show. So that's what, 9 days away? So just over a week. She goes into Scorpio. The moon's in Scorpio, the new moon's in Scorpio, Mercury's in Scorpio, Juno, and the sun. So Mercury is influencing the moon, and the moon's only influenced briefly because the moon changes degree every, like 10 or 15 minutes. I take it back, not every 10 or 15 minutes. I would say within an hour, it will have gone over Mercury. Again, 1 degree apart right now. So the moon, in all her emotion, in her desire to wrap things up, in the energy of culmination, right now, she's moving in the early degrees of the sign, talking to Mercury, saying, what have you got for me? What juicy tidbits can you give me? Because I need to know. I've got to understand on an emotional level and integrate the information. So as the moon gets closer to the sun, which is the new moon, and I will tell you that happens overnight. And I think at the beginning of the year, I mentioned that a lot of interesting like retrogrades and new moons and full moons all happen over midnight and over time zones this year. And this new moon happens at 23 degrees of Scorpio, beginning in the Pacific time zone at 9:07 p.m. on Saturday the 14th. And it is over the time zone. So on Sunday at 12:07 a.m. in Eastern time zone, it actually is exact at the same degree. So of course it's the one event happening over the time zones. So it's 9:07 p.m. Pacific, 10:07 p.m. Mountain, 11:07 p.m. on the 14th in Central, and then it's 12 a.m., 12:07 a.m. in Eastern time zones when we have the new moon. So the new moon is what's called Cazimi, C-A-Z-I-M-I. And that means that it is extremely powerful. It is kind of like the combust energy when Mercury is connected to the sun, but it's like the two are together acting as one. And there's extra power in that moment. I got chills telling you this. So really, honestly, I would, if I were you, I would do a late evening ritual on Saturday night, whatever time zone you're in. Eastern probably gets the best because they can do midnight, and midnight is pretty profound, I think, as a time. Midnight, noon, dawn, dusk, those are really, I think, significant in a day as far as energy shifts. And so if you can do a late night ritual towards that moon in those time zones, toward the time I told you, it's very powerful this time. And because it's right on the sun, it's in late degrees, it's going to really affect how we see ourselves as a being connected to the other side. It's almost as if Halloween has continued. And I mean, if you think about the last, 13 days, we had Halloween, then we had get it right here, Dia de los Muertos, which was November 1st for Day of the Dead. November 2nd was All Saints Day. 11th was Veterans Day in America. I think the 9th I think it was the 9th in England. So we've had almost 2 weeks of really honoring those who have passed, or the energy of Scorpio, which is digging deeper, being more spiritual, but also occult and dark-sided energy. So a new moon is making us aware of how we can transmute this energy by shining light on it, the sun and the moon. So the two bodies in the heavens, one reflects the other, but when the moon is on the same side of the earth with the sun, we don't see it. because the sun is so big and overpowers it, but it does connect to the energy. So it is feminine energy, and ego, the sun, can be considered masculine, but I guess I've never really thought of the sun as masculine per se, but I would see it as more of an entity of universality that shines on all of us and really awakens us to our own personal power, which is why the sun is equivalent to an ego energy, I think, because it's our personal power. But in a positive sense, the light brings out our own light. It brings out our creativity, our knowledge, our awareness, our what we can teach the world, what we have to give the world. It is the midheaven, middle of the day, shining on us. So the energy being Scorpio, ruled by Pluto. So it answers to Pluto, which again is at late degree Capricorn at 27 degrees. So they're only 4 degrees off of an exact sextile at the moment of the new moon. That's pretty powerful as well. Jupiter at 23 today. Let me see if Jupiter is at a degree close. Yeah, it's still at 23 on the new moon. So there is, oh, and that's right, because I just read this before I came on. There is a sextile between the moon and Jupiter right before, yeah. So there's a moon sextile Jupiter at 9:03 p.m. and then it joins up with the sun. So having the sun sextile Pluto, the sun sextiles Jupiter at 10:57 p.m. Eastern, 7:57 p.m. Pacific on the 14th of the new moon, the day of the new moon. And so overnight for Eastern time zone, again, same thing, 12:03 a.m., the moon is sextile, positive 60-degree aspect to Jupiter. What does that mean? It means, well, interestingly enough, that's pretty close to the degree of Biden's sun. Jupiter is transformative. It is powerful in shifting energy. I think last week I did caution about this energy coming in. Sextiles, I would say yes. For me, sextiles are very much like pure positive energy. I love sextiles. Now, a square or a conjunction, yeah, conjunction also can be very potent, very powerful, but it can also transform in a way that we don't emotionally want in our world. So, transitions of people. And yet, so we're going to focus today on the positive energy of Scorpio and not really get into the negativity of the Jupiter energy. That might probably be more appropriate next week, although I can tell you late degree Capricorn and Scorpio, those two energies definitely have something to do with the end of something, even in the physical world, even in the body, the end of a story with a person like Alex Trebek, who passed on last weekend. We've got this energy is out there. Scorpio, the month of Scorpio is about connecting to the other side. So the new moon, what can you do for the new moon? The new moon is about really getting real with your dark side, but also planning how you can bring out the positive side, the fighter for justice, the warrior for justice. Having decisions, making those decisions. We've got Venus and Libra still. Now, Venus and Libra, she really wants to be liked, like Leo. They really want to be liked. And she wants to balance things. So she's out there trying to be a diplomat, where Scorpio is the therapist and the person, the social worker who gets to the heart of the matter. Venus is in Libra, it is social work, but it is more like, there, it'll be all right. Whereas Scorpio is like, this is a problem. Why did you put up with this for all those years? So we're going to have a combination of things here. It is not just a clear-cut energy. It is clear-cut and decisive, but the energy is bringing out both positive and negative. And if you're good with Scorpionic energy, which I personally am, I mean, I'm going to be experiencing my moon and Neptune triggered over the course of this new moon, over the course of Mercury going in there, and Venus and all of the planets that are quicker moving right now in Scorpio. And so we have a strong connection to the other side of the veil. So we're going to be bringing in energy from people who have passed. We're going to be thinking about our ancestors and our loved ones who have passed. We are probably going to be really, especially today, and I know this may not get up the day I recorded. I'm going to try and get the video up tonight because I always put them up on Fridays. But the recording, we'll see. I'll probably do both if I can. And then you can also have it for the new moon to understand it all day Saturday and listen to this podcast. So yeah, it's about our ideas. It's about how we integrate the thoughts around the dark side of our lives, the things that have stuck in our subconscious and influenced us in our behavior over our whole lives, over however many degrees the planets are at for you that are being triggered. Well, in this case, we've got pretty much everything. Pluto at 22, so it's 22 years old, which is the 3/4 Saturn cycle through 28 degrees, or 28 years, excuse me. So Saturn takes 28 years to go all the way around the sun. That means he squares himself at 7 degrees, and he opposes himself at 14 years. Opposes where he was when we were born 14 years later, approximately. He's opposite of where he was when we were born. So at 14, we get a little annoyed. We get a little frustrated. Okay, so we're going to really be digging deep, and it's emotional because the moon is there. But the positive side is Kazemi to the sun. I believe the sun is going to bring us out of the dark and really burn off a lot of those darker emotional events. That's pretty profound for me because of my mother-daughter issues with my own mother. Hoping that's a really great watershed time, at least energetically. I personally don't necessarily believe you have to interact with the person that you have issues with, because I believe in energy work. I do Reiki. I know people are affected by our thoughts, by our words, by the energy we give off, whether it's angry or love, whatever, they're affected. So if you want to use and utilize this new moon to the best of your ability, write it down, burn it up in a fire. Sometimes I've heard you can also write things down and put it in the freezer in a glass of water, as long as it's not going to be disturbed. And, who knows how long that'll last. Water does evaporate in the freezer, believe it or not. I know. And so, with the energy being water, you could maybe shred it up into infinite pieces and throw it in the ocean or something along those lines. Or, yeah, but however you deal with it, write it down. I did a ritual, believe it or not, I did a ritual with Doreen Virtue when I went to one of her workshops in California about 2007. And what we did was we wrote down I take it back. We didn't even write it down. We went out into nature and picked up natural objects. So a shell, we were on the beach in California, picked up a shell or a rock or a stick that had come in as driftwood. And we held the intention of infusing it with what we wanted to change. And then we all threw those into the ocean as a release. So that would be a really great ceremony if you live on the coastline somewhere. If you could go out to the coast and do that ceremony. I got chills. I probably should do that ceremony. But anyway, that would be a really wonderful water energy ceremony for you to do on this new moon. I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to race through the rest of it if there's anything else. So Mars now direct this evening at 7, what time? 7:38 Eastern, 4:38 Pacific. And so 5:38 Mountain and 4:38 Central. No, I might have that reversed. I'll let you do the math. So Mars going direct. Mars is at 15. He almost immediately comes up upon Pluto. Mars squaring Pluto. I'm going to have to look it up. Let me see if I can real quick for you here. So he's going to square Pluto mid-December, right? Oh, man. Right when we're going through all these shifts of planets. Yeah, what's going on in the elections is not going to be over before the end of the year. I mean, that's as far as I've looked about it. But I definitely feel that the whole issue with the outgoing administration is going to get exacerbated with this Mars direct, because it squares Saturn, which is the authority figure, and it squares Capricorn. And we dig our heels in and we don't want to go. But at the same time, Aries is the identity, the ego sign, the first house of the zodiac's ruled by Aries and Mars. And so we're going to make a tantrum. We're going to throw tantrums. We're going to feel the energy of the anger, and we're going to start expressing it, which means that we're going to see more aggression. We're going to see more tantrums. We're going to see fights. All the planets in Scorpio are ready for a fight. Let me tell you, if they're triggered, they're not necessarily looking for it, but Aries is in conjunct to that energy, which means, yes, it will look for something, especially ego battles. The sun is at 21, Mars is at 15. So they're only about 6 degrees apart. They're both moving forward. The sun will go faster than Mars will. So he isn't necessarily going to catch the sun before the sun gets into a new sign, but they are in a position, and Mercury will end up joining up closer to an inconjunct to the sun over time. And Mercury is going to be a battle of words. And the other thing I wanted to say was, on the positive side of Aries, Aries is very driven. It's ambitious. It rules salespeople. It rules firefighters. So if there are more fires re-triggered through this fire energy coming out again, it means it's going to be hotter. It means that there is a connection and a square to the Earth with Pluto. And so there's probably going to be another iteration of fires. And Mars is looking to fight fires, to police the area, to be around emergencies. And, really it's that drive, that forward masculine energy. I mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. Mars, when it was direct last time, was the Black Lives Matter movement coming out and the questioning of the police force. It retrograded. We pulled back on that. I didn't hear a lot about anything happening with that until recently, but that storyline is going to go forward again. And Mars doesn't get into Taurus until like the second week of January 7th. So at the end of the first week. And so we're going to have the story come up again. There's going to be a push for rights for Black people. There's going to be a Reformation push, which may actually come about when Mars gets into Taurus, because it brings it into the tangible. It will probably also be a matter of money. I'm guessing reduction of money going into the police force is a potential. But also when Mars goes into Taurus in the beginning of next year, it's going to really trigger the financial markets to be more active. And at that time, I'm looking at Venus in Capricorn on the 9th. That's when Venus goes into Capricorn. And then Mars is only 2 days before going into Taurus. So those two planets are going to be around the same degree, talking to each other in positive aspect trine around the 11th of January. So I think that if you look into the new year, the money storyline is going to really rise up around the 11th of January to where, what's going to happen. But I think, of course, Venus in Capricorn is going to be worried about the security and the stability of the financial markets, whereas Mars is bullish. He's going to be in Taurus. He's bullish. So anyway, it's more positive for that time of year. Uranus in Taurus goes direct not long after the beginning of the new year. So that's going to be a wonderful forward push on the 13th, 14th of January. So I do see the beginning of, even though there may be some type of lockdown energy in December when Jupiter and Saturn join up in Aquarius, which is that detachment and that need to be on technology, that could also be restrictive for a brief time. Ultimately, I think that we are going to get a bit of our land legs come January. So that's my positive outlook for the next maybe 8 weeks. Okay, I've got to get going, but if you're interested, I wanted to mention you could get a reading at angeliczodiac.com. Love giving it and love giving readings and going through your chart, helping you understand what's going on. And also, if you're interested in my artwork, you can get it at shelleyoverton.com, SHELLEY Overton, OVERTON.com. And we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye.
You have been listening to the AstroEnergy Astrology Show. If you would like to get a private reading with Shelley, please contact her through angeliczodiac.com or at so@angeliczodiac.com. You can arrange a reading through the Angelic Zodiac page at facebook.com as well. Check out Angelic Zodiac on Instagram for up-to-date information on events, discounts, blogs and planetary transits at Angelic Zodiac 1 on Instagram. If you would like to see Shelley's art, shelleyoverton.com, or for astrology art, go to astroart.net. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Other music will be credited within the show. Advice given in the program is intended for entertainment purposes only. Join us here next week for more of the AstroEnergy Astrology Show podcast. You can find us on iTunes and Google Play, and where podcasts are accessed.